Okay. Now this point for this glass. Now see when it is empty, the stem of this glass it is, oh sorry, no, the stem of the glass and base of the glass are solid. So most of the mass will be concentrated here closer to the ground. But when it is filled with liquid, with juice, this mass is same but extra mass is added up there. So what will happen when it will be done? So center of gravity will be shifted up. For stability it should be lower, closer to the ground. This one is closer to the ground and this is away from the ground. See the here height is less, but here height from the ground is what? More. So this will become less stable and this will become more stable in comparison to B. And the same thing here in Kingdom Tower, from the top it is empty. So there is no solid. There is air. Air is of course having less mass because it is having less density also. So most of the mass is concentrated closer to the ground. So that's why it will be more stable. Another thing, you know about the double decker buses famous for London. Even here in Riyadh, sometime in Ulaya area, you can see them on the Malakpad Road, Service Road. Even in Medina Munawwara, Babe Fahad, Fahad Gate, main entrance of the masjid. In front of that, you can, I know before COVID it was there. Now last year also I saw it there. So before COVID I asked them, they were charging 80 riyals for 24 hours. So anytime you can board on those buses and you can see visit the historical places in Medina like this. So that ticket was, but why I'm giving that example, for these double decker buses, they will never let you sit on the upper deck till the lower deck is not completely occupied by the passengers. So what they are doing for these double decker buses which are higher in the which are higher, or in other words their height is more. In other words, what? Their height is more. So to make them stable, what they are doing, so their ground or their base on which the seats are fixed, that is of solid steel or any other metal, solid, so that a lot of mass is there. Then when the passengers are sitting on the lower deck of the bus, so all further mass is increased and then the other passengers are allowed to move to the upper deck. And like this, this all is done or maintained to keep the stability of the bus, or to maintain the stability of the bus with its passengers. Please, if you have any question further on this, please feel free and you can ask me. Ala, she was asking me to repeat it and then I just gave you a break, and now she is not there in the lesson right now. Okay, my dear students, now this is one thing. Let's apply it on some questions first, quickly. Now come here. The diagram shows four objects on a flat surface A, B, C and D. The center of mass of each object is marked M. So M is representing center of mass and same point is the center of gravity. Which object is about to fall over? The object about to fall over will be the object which is not stable. Which is not stable. So one answer I got it. That is from Rafif. Yes, it is correct. A, C center of gravity passes through its base. It is stable. Passes through base, stable. Passes through base, stable. But this one is out of base. So this one is not stable. So this will be the first to topple over. Yes, Abdurrahman, you are correct. Okay. Then my dear, wait a minute. Okay, now I will come to these questions, but before that, question number 17. The diagrams show four solid cones. The center of mass of each cone is marked by a point labeled M. Which cone is most stable? Now see, the question is reversed. Before, which one will topple? Will fall over? That was least stable. Now most stable. A and C cannot be the answer, either B or D. Why not A and C? Because their base area is less. Their base area is small. Answer can be B or D. One answer is there. Yes, Abdurrahman, it is correct. Only one answer till now. Yusuf, yes, correct. Why correct answer is D? The reason is, see, their base area is same for B as well as for D. Base area is same. But here center of gravity is higher and here it is closer to the ground. So correct answer will be what? D, because for a body to be stable, its center of mass should be closer to the ground and also its base area should be more. So B and D base area is same. So this is the height of center of gravity which will decide either B or D which one is more stable. Okay, this is done. Now come to this question 24. There are many. A wooden plank rests in equilibrium on two boulders on opposite sides of a narrow stream. These are the boulders, opposite side of a narrow stream. Three forces of size P, Q and R act on the plank. How are the sizes of the forces related? It is in equilibrium. If it is in equilibrium, in terms of forces, then total upward force should be equal to total downward force. Total upward force should be equal to total downward force. Total upward force should be equal to total downward force. Okay. So total upward force, I am writing UF, upward force. total upward force is equal to P plus R, and total downward force is equal to Q. So check where it is P plus R is equal to Q. So answer given by Abdurrahman exactly correct, mashallah. You have good concept, my dear friend. P plus R is equal to Q, because there are two conditions for a body to be in equilibrium. Number one, resultant force should be zero, or total upward force should be equal to total downward force. Total upward force should be equal to total downward force. Second, total clockwise movement should be equal to total anti-clockwise movement, but that movements they did not ask, they asked in terms of forces. So upward force total P plus R, because both arrows are pointing upward, and force is a vector quantity. If the two forces are in the same direction, they are added. So P plus R. This is upward force. Downward there is only one force shown, that is Q. So P plus R is equal to Q. Answer was B. Now I will go back to the movement of a force, because I forgot something very important to explain. Okay, now that is here and this all. Now my dear friends, I want you to be attentive. Blue I have used, so I will go now. Sorry. Okay, now see, as I have written, this boy is causing clockwise movement and this girl is causing anti-clockwise movement. Let me say that the distance of this boy, or the weight of the boy from the pivot, that is 1 meter, and the weight of this boy is 1000 Newton, whereas the weight of this girl, that is, let me say, 400 Newton, and the distance from the pivot to the force, that is 2.5 meters. It is more. You can see that this plank, wooden rod on which this boy and girl are sitting on two opposite sides, the plank is balanced. So it means clockwise movement is equal to anti-clockwise movement. So what is the clockwise movement? That is equal to force times distance. Force here is 1000 and distance from the pivot is 1. So 1000 Newton meter is the movement, clockwise movement, which is caused by this boy. Anti-clockwise movement, that will be also equal to force times distance. What is the force? Force is 400, and what is the distance? That is 2.5. So my dear friends, 400 times 2.5, it is also equal to how much? 1000. 1000 Newton meter. Now you can observe here. Okay, first of all, if anybody is having any doubt in this calculation, please feel free and you can ask me. If anybody is having a doubt in this calculation, please feel free and you can ask me about the calculation. So the movement caused by the boy, 1000 Newton meter, and movement caused by this girl, that is also 1000 Newton meter. So clockwise movement is equal to anti-clockwise movement. So this beam, this rod, this plank of wood is stable. Now question is, when boy is heavier and girl is lighter, why still the beam is balanced, is in equilibrium? The reason is, boy is heavier, more force, but he is sitting closer to the pivot, while the girl is lighter, she is having less mass, so less weight, but she is sitting away from the pivot. So she is sitting away from the pivot, so more distance but less force times more distance will be equal to more force times less distance. What do I mean to say? I mean to say, if an object if a load, unknown weight, unknown force is acting closer to the pivot and another unknown force is acting further away from the pivot, so the object, the force, the weight which is closer to the pivot, it will be greater in magnitude than the force which is acting away from the pivot. And this is the reason. Now you can check wherever you are sitting in your house, it is rest, it is drawing room, it is bedroom, it is TV lounge, whatever. So just check the door and you will observe the handle to open the door or to shut the door. It is at maximum possible distance from the pivot. Why so? It is so that we can open the door and we can shut the door by applying a smaller force. So if the force is acting at a greater distance from the pivot, so less force will be needed to create a required amount of moment of force. But if you want to do it with greater force, then you can put or fix this handle, door handle or door knob closer to the pivot. Where? Closer to the pivot, then more force will be needed to open it and more force will be needed to shut it. This was very important. So to check that you people have got this concept or no, I'm asking you a question, very common, a formula question in exams, but very much conceptual. Now stay connected and check, my dear friends. This is a door. Let me say this is the door handle. This is one pivot hinge, this is the third one. So hinge or pivot. Now this is the classroom door for grade 10 in school. Okay. There is a student A who is standing outside and he is applying a force of 100 Newton. This is student A. 100 Newton at a distance of 1 meter and this student is outside. You just imagine what is happening in the classrooms when the teacher is not there. So this is student A, he is standing outside applying a force of 100 Newton at a distance of 1 meter from the pivot to open the door. And there is a student B inside the room, he is also applying a force of 100 Newton, but he is applying the force at a distance of 0.5 meters to open the door. So this B is inside. Again, diagram of the door. On left side, 3 hinges or pivots are shown. Handle is very clearly mentioned. There is one student A, he is standing outside the classroom, teacher is not there in the classroom and he is trying to open the door by applying a force of 100 Newton at a distance of 1 meter from the pivot. Whereas there is another student B inside the classroom, he is also applying a force of 100 Newton but at a distance of 0.5 meters. Now the question for 1 mark, which student will be successful? A, he will be successful to open the door, or B, he is successful to keep the door shut. Because A is trying to open the door and B is trying to keep it shut. That's what you observe, 2-3 students outside, 2-3 inside, banging on the door and trying to open it or trying to shut it. Now which student will be successful? A or B? And then for next 2 marks, why? Again, which student will be successful? Either A, he will be successful to open the door, or B, he will be successful to keep the door shut because A is outside the classroom and pushing on the door to open it, and B is inside the classroom pushing on the door to keep it shut. Who will be successful and why? And answer you have to give on the basis of moments. Formula of moments, force times distance. Okay, Abdurrahman, correct. What about others? Now see, my dear students. Now see, answer will be A will be able to open the door. First mark you scored, like 1. Why? Now see, let me write movement caused by A. Movement is force times distance. So 100 force times distance, 100 times 1, it will be 100 Newton meter. Now movement caused by B. Again same formula, force times distance, it will be equal to 100 times 0.5, 50 Newton meter. Now I told you in the lesson today in the beginning, if the movement, clockwise movement is greater than anti-clockwise movement, then the body will be rotating in clockwise direction and vice versa. Now here we are not considering clockwise or anti-clockwise. A is trying to open the door and he is generating a movement, he is applying a force generating a movement of 100 Newton meter, and B is trying to keep it shut but applying the same force but closer to the pivot, so he or she will not be able to keep the door shut. So because less movement is applied by him or her. To explain it further, so I'm sure this will be, so A will be successful because he is generating force applied by the student. A will be generating greater movement being it is applied at a greater distance. So you can do it now. Even any one of you or all of you go closer to the ground door, open it and push it, then you will see that. Now let me do it in front of you people. Let me do it in front of you people. Here, camera on, and I want you to see this door, and I am moving it, going it closer to the door handle. See, here is the door handle. Now my dear friends, I have opened the door till this point. Now I will be just applying a gentle force to keep it shut, to keep it shut, or to shut the door. See, door is shut. A small force is applied. Now, why it is so? Because the force is applied further away from the pivot. Pivot is here. This is the pivot. And I am applying a force at maximum distance door handle. Here. Now I am doing the same thing. Same force. But here at the center, see, belt is hanging there. I am applying the same force. Door is not shut. Same force again. Door is not shut. Why? Because force is there. Same force is there. But distance from the pivot is less. So that's why the movement caused by the force here is less as compared to the movement caused by the same force here. It is more because the length or distance is more. So that's why you have observed that, my dear friends, when we are on the highway and the car tire is punctured, so we have to replace the car tire. So we are opening the steel nuts from the tires, not by our finger. We are using a spanner. As the spanner is longer, less force is needed to unscrew the steel nuts. I will not say only nuts. You may think about pistachio or cashew or some almond or something like that. Steel nuts, metal nuts. Okay, so that's why even if it is a truck or a trailer, so they are having long rods, fixing it on, and then from the far away place, a long distance away, they are applying a force. So less force is needed than to open the steel nuts on the tires. So easily they can remove it and unscrew them and replace the tire and screw them back again. This is the key concept. And also, like here in this example, you can observe, I told you already, boy, 100 Newton, 1000 Newton weight. Girl, only 400 Newton weight. But still the plank is balanced. Why so? Boy is sitting closer to the pivot. Girl is sitting further away from the pivot. And movement is not only caused by force, movement is not only caused by distance from the pivot, movement is caused by the product of force and distance. If distance is more, less force will be needed. Distance is more from where? Distance is more from the pivot, less force will be needed. Less force will be needed to cause the same movement as more force but closer to the pivot. Okay, so this is so important and very common concept for scientific reasoning questions. Please comment on this. Now I will solve 2-3 MCQs on especially this topic. Waiting for your response. If there is anything you can ask me. Okay, let's go back to the topic now. So to MCQs now. I still did not correct your quiz. It will be done tomorrow. But now, this time a lot of homework will also be there. Now this question is your homework. What is the date today? 10/8. Next homework, next question. Now come here, come here, come here. Yes, very important. Question number 15 I will be solving, and I want you people to be attentive. The diagram shows a uniform beam being used as a balance. The beam is pivoted at its center, so it means if this is 2 meter long, so distance from left hand side is 1 meter, and distance from here is also what? 1 meter. So this one is 1 meter and this one is also 1 meter because the plank is pivoted or beam is pivoted at the center. A 1 Newton weight attached to one end of the plank. Here is 1 Newton. An empty pan of 0.2 Newton is attached to the other end of the beam. How many 0.1 Newton weights must be placed on the pan in order to balance the beam? Now see, the distance is same from the pivot to the left hand weight and to the right hand pan. Distance is same. So forces must also be same. How much force is needed here to make it 1 Newton? That is 0.8 Newton is needed. So if you ask me, first of all, difference in weight, that will be equal to 1.0 minus 0.2, and don't forget to write the unit, which is Newton. So difference is 0.8 Newton. He is not asking how much force is needed or weight is needed. He is asking how many 0.1 Newton weights are needed, must be placed on the pan in order to balance the beam. So 0.1, difference is 0.8. So what can you do? 0.8 divided by 0.1 Newton. As you will simplify it, answer will be equal to 8. Check. First of all, 1 minus 0.2, that is 0.8, which is divided by 0.1. Why divided by 0.1? Because the examiner is willing to know how many 0.1 Newton weights are there. So first of all, we will calculate the difference in weights. Why we want to keep the weights equal? Because the lengths from the pivot to distance from the pivot to the right hand pan and left hand weight, that is same. If distance is same and this is balanced, then forces should also be same. Now left hand side force is 1 Newton, right hand side force is 0.2 Newton. So how much short or less is there? How much Newton is less there on the right hand pan? That is 1 minus 0.2, it is 0.8 Newton. And he is not asking directly 0.8 Newton total weight. He is asking how many 0.1 Newton weights must be placed to keep the balance beam, in order to balance the beam. So We calculated 0.8 divided by 0.1, so answer is 8.1 Newton weights are needed. A heavy beam rests on two supports. The diagram shows the only three forces F1, F2 and F3 acting on the beam. The beam is in equilibrium. Which statement is correct? So there are two conditions. All the forces are equal in size. No. The resultant force on the beam is in opposite direction to the resulting turning effect. Not making any sense. The resultant force on the beam 0. First condition is fulfilled. And the resultant turning effect on the beam is also 0. Second condition is also fulfilled. This is a recall memory. We have already studied for an object to be in equilibrium, it must fulfill two conditions. Resultant force should be balanced, or resultant force should be 0, not balanced. Resultant force should be 0, net force should be 0, or total upward force is equal to total downward force. So here resultant force on the beam is 0 given. Second, resultant moment of force on it is also 0. So second condition is also given. So for this object or beam to be in complete equilibrium, C is the correct answer. Okay, my dear friends, what is next? This question is your homework. 10-8. Next class is on Wednesday. Yom Al-Arbaa 5 to 7. Inshallah. Remember it. Same link. Now, this question is also your homework. You have to tell which rod in the diagram, which diagram shows the rod in equilibrium. A, B, C, D, you will do it. Okay. I will do something calculated work for you people. Yes, this one is also so much important. So, 10-8. I don't know what to do. You will do it. Okay, let me solve this question now. A uniform plank rests on a pivot at its center. Again, the pivot is at the center. Two children P and Q sit on the plank in the positions shown. The mass of the child P is 25 kg. The plank is balanced. What is the mass of child Q? Okay. So, clockwise movement, because this will make it to go this way. This will be anti-clockwise movement. So to get the answer, we can say clockwise movement is equal to anti-clockwise movement, or no need to write this. Simply, see, we know clockwise movement is force times distance. Anti-clockwise movement is also force times distance. Force is equal to weight here. mg times d is equal to mg times d. G is cancelled on both sides. You know, simple mathematics. Now mass of child P 25. Distance of the child P from the pivot 1.2. Mass of the child Q we don't know. Distance is 1.5. So mass will be equal to 25 times 1.2 over 1.5. 25 times 1.2, 30 divided by 1.5, 20. So mass of child Q is 20 kilogram, which is option A. Okay, I solved it for you people, but if I was going to solve it, I was going to choose without calculation option A. The reason for that, check. Mass of the child P is given. He is sitting at a distance of 1.2 meters. Mass of the child Q we have to find. He is sitting and she is sitting at a distance of 1.5 meters. So we know if the force is applied away from the pivot, less force, less mass. So it means the mass of child Q should be less than the mass of child P. Less than the mass of child P. So C and D are out. They are more. B was correct. If the child Q is also sitting at a distance of 1.2, she is sitting far from the pivot. So her mass is less than 25. and there is only one option less than 25, which is 20 kilogram. So correct answer is option A. Read the question, see the whole working. If there is any question or query, feel free and you can ask me. Okay, now this question. Two forces P and Q act on a meter rule as shown. The meter rule is pivoted at one end. See here, rule is not in the center. Oh, sorry, pivot is not in the center. The rule starts to rotate in clockwise direction. If it is rotating in clockwise direction, it means clockwise movement is more than anti-clockwise movement. Now very carefully, as I told you, two forces are acting here, P and Q. Both are acting on right side. I told you force acting on the right side of the pivot in downward direction, it is clockwise. So it means P is causing clockwise movement and force on right side upward opposite. It means anti-clockwise movement. It means what? Anti-clockwise movement. So we already know that clockwise movement in this case should be greater than anti-clockwise movement. Now see, movement force times distance. Here force is P and distance is A. So PA. PA. A and B wrong, either C or D. It should be greater than, because clockwise movement is greater than anti-clockwise movement. So correct answer simply is D. But what will be the anti-clockwise movement? Force is Q time distance from the force to the pivot. What is the distance? That is A plus B. A plus B. So that's why Q times A plus B is smaller than P times A. Why? Because force P is causing clockwise movement and force Q is causing anti-clockwise movement. So clockwise movement in this case should be greater than anti-clockwise movement. Why? Because the rule, it starts to rotate in clockwise direction. Clockwise force, clockwise movement is greater and anti-clockwise movement is smaller. Please, if you have any question here, feel free and you can ask me. No worries. Now see, clockwise movement should be greater than anti-clockwise movement. Why so? Because the rule, it starts to rotate in clockwise direction. Okay. So first of all, we have to know which one is clockwise movement. First, check where is the pivot. Pivot is on extreme left. Force P and Q both are on the right side. Just imagine about the clock. See, this one will make the rod or rule to rotate this way, which is clockwise. Why clockwise? See, if I'm talking about clock 12, 3, 6, 9. See, this force is moving, making it to move from 3 to 6 in clockwise, and this force is making it to move from 3 to 12 anti-clockwise. First of all, you have to locate which one is clockwise, which one is anti-clockwise. Ala, please comment. Is it clear why P is clockwise and why Q is anti-clockwise? Comment on this first before I move forward. Okay. Then now what is movement? Force times distance. Which force? These are two forces P and Q. Force P. So force times distance, P times A. Why A? Because distance from the force P to the pivot is A. So PA. Then Q, anti-clockwise movement. Formula again, force times distance. Force is Q. Distance from Q to pivot A plus B. That will be the distance total. So A plus B. So that's what I did. So as it is rotating in clockwise direction, so P times A is greater than Q times A plus B. No, Ala and everybody comment on this. Is it okay with you all? Okay, Alhamdulillah. So my dear friends, now there is two more questions as your homework. I spent a lot of energy, so why you people will be only enjoying. Question number 33, also homework 10-8. There is one paper 4 question also in shortcut. Just let me give you that portion also, not this one. This we have to study still. Now this part. Let me say the. This is also your homework. 10, 8, 1 and 2. So till here is your homework 10, 8. Okay, my dear friends, stay blessed all of you and take care. Assalamu alaikum.